How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Theme Park Shark Podcast. My name is Dustin Sparagi, and today we have another segment of the Shark Stop episodes that we've been doing here. It's kind of become a fan favorite from what I've been seeing so far. It's kind of interesting. So far, I've met a few of you in park, and one of the things that people have come up to me and talked to me about the most is my podcast. They say, hey, I really enjoy your podcast. So definitely have to thank you, Alicia, for bringing that to my podcast. I think it's really been interesting and people have enjoyed the segment we're doing. So I think we have something good here and excited to dive into another one with you today.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun too.
So today we're going to be talking about some changes to Super Nintendo World. I don't know if we can necessarily call them complete changes because they weren't already completely set in stone, but they were pitched. So these are ideas and concepts that Universal Studios actually pitched to Nintendo when getting the job for this park. So we're really excited to talk about things that changed, things that developed, and things that did kind of remain the same. So without further ado, Alicia, let's dive into this one.
Yeah, everyone's so caught up in what they actually are building for Nintendo in Japan and Hollywood, Singapore, and Orlando that no one ever stops to think, what could have we had?
Right.
What was the original idea for Nintendo? And we did get some leaked concept art. Pretty much any of the concept art for inside the Mario Kart Ride up until this point has been leaked art that's based on an older version. It's not even the current version that's being built. So like in my video that I recently did talking about all the different levels, the only concept art I could ever really show is the unofficial leaked art that was essentially a pitch. It's like, hey, Nintendo, we want to make rides in our parks, and this is what it could look like. But then Nintendo stepped in, and it's like, we love this idea, but... So, yeah, I thought today would be interesting to kind of go through those old plans and compare them to the current versions, like what they actually are building and how they're different.
I guess just looking at them from the very top, is there something that immediately jumped off the page to you like, wow, I can't believe this changed? This didn't make it. What was just your first initial impression? Like, wow, I can't believe this was cut or this was changed.
I think the biggest thing for the land itself is there was way too much crammed into this tiny space. Like it's like they wanted to put the full library, the full catalog of all Nintendo properties into one land. So you see things like Zelda's Kingdom, of course, the Donkey Kong Island, which survived, Kirby's Kids Playland, then the Mario Kart Ride building actually had extra layers and had a Luigi's Mansion play area, a flying airship area. And then there's like all these little things scattered around too. There's even a Pokemon training academy. There's some flat rides, like a Koopa Troopa spinning shells, like a Mad Teacup ride, Mario and Luigi's Pizza restaurant. And everything is so small because they're putting way too much into this, except for the Mario Kart ride. And I don't think it's really doing something like Pokemon, one of the biggest IPs in the entire world. It's not really doing it justice to just have one little storefront.
So someone that is a fan of multiple different, I guess, sections of the Nintendo brand, someone that's a fan of many of the different brands that they have within Nintendo, do you think that they're going to be pleased that we got the result that we did, which was kind of bringing that back down, kind of getting back to the basics, putting more into the brands that we are putting into the park instead of having a little bit from all of them? Do you think that person will be satisfied in the end with that decision?
Well, I hope it leads to bigger and better, more immersive experiences. Like before, there was a Bullet Bill flying ride around part of the land. And I think Nintendo was like, I don't think our fans want to ride in a Bullet Bill. How about making that a Yoshi? And I was like, okay, that's a good change. That's a good change. Or like the Zelda attraction. If you heard that there's a Zelda attraction, your mind would instantly go like, oh, this ride is going to be like that Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. Like this is going to be the biggest like e-ticket attraction with so many different special effects. But then you get to it and it's this really tiny theater show in the old Barney building at Universal Studios Florida. I think you'd be disappointed because in your mind, it's already better than reality. So by cutting something like that and leaving that space for something else, and then maybe putting off Zelda. I hope one day Islands of Adventure or one of the other parks in Orlando gets a whole fully fledged Zelda land, like a whole Hyrule, because I think that's what it deserves. I don't think it doesn't lend itself well to a teeny little show in the corner of a scattered land that it's almost like if you took all of Fantasyland and crammed it into the kids zone area. That's what the old version looked like. You got these spinner rides, you've got Kirby, the flying Dumbo ride and things like that. And I don't think it lends itself to the future immersive theme park experiences that we're used to now with like Galaxy's Edge or Diagon Alley. There are other smaller things like the entry to the land was going to be Princess Peach's castle, and it ended up being like facing out toward the park, but it ended up being the warp pipe. So it became like a Diagon Alley entrance where it's more hidden and you see the castle after you exit into the land. But it's only just a warp pipe on the outside. And I think that's an interesting like way of looking at it, especially with Epic Universe, where everything has a portal to enter the land. No longer is it just like, oh, that's obviously Nintendo. It's more like there's just a green pipe and you have to enter that to enter the world. And then inside the world, there's a green pipe that separates the Mushroom Kingdom from Donkey Kong Country. So like I think they went for a more immersive experience from the original pitch.
I wonder how a separation like that would have occurred before without the pipes. Like how it seems like it just would have kind of been an abrupt step over, or do you think they would have still figured out a way to kind of contain and enclose a separation of sections like that?
In the old version, there was a little like stream running through some of it. So you could still see everything clearly, but there was a little bridge, almost like a mini Islands of Adventure. So you would go from the Mushroom Kingdom area to Kirby's Kids Playland, and then across a little waterway to Donkey Kong, and then make a sharp left, and then there's the Mario Kart Ride and play areas. But it would use water, but I don't think it would be the kind of grand reveal you get by entering a green warp pipe and then on the other side you're in a jungle for Donkey Kong.
Right, that's it. That is kind of interesting that they would even pitch something like that, because the entire idea in what seems to be Epic Universe is that they're going to enclose and it kind of immerse people in these worlds while they're in them. So to see that they had an initial pitch that kind of strayed away from that is kind of interesting, but it also kind of proves your point that something that you and I have already discussed was this really just seemed like Universal's way of saying, hey, this is everything that we can do. Because it almost seemed like they knew that this was their shot to get Nintendo. So what are you going to do with that shot? You're going to show them absolutely everything you can do, not just kind of in a closed-in idea with maybe one or two big attractions. Because at that point, maybe you lose their business because they didn't see your entire vision.
Yeah, they crammed everything in here knowing full well that this would probably not all make it. It was a blue sky idea. It was like, look what we can do. And on top of that, this is maybe like a decade ago. Like they pitched this years and years ago, before Diagon Alley and Pandora and Star Wars, before like the real change happened in the immersiveness of theme park lands. And this is more built on like an older version of what a theme park land would be. It's like, let's throw everything out and like give everyone everything. And like, here it is. And you can see the teacup ride and you can see Dumbo and you can see everything from even Fantasyland itself has been redone. So you can't see all the stuff at the same time. So it's funny how everything's been evolving. So since this pitch, Nintendo, obviously they agreed to it, but then they're like, let's change some things. And they worked together with Universal for years to get to the point that we are at now, which is very different, but still utilizing a lot of the same ideas and concepts and even the same ride systems that were pitched all those years ago. So it's interesting to see the evolution.
It's kind of funny that you said it does kind of seem like the prototypical classic theme park land, the way it was initially offered. So if the pitch really was this long ago, you have to wonder how much Pandora and Wizarding World of Harry Potter actually did go into Nintendo saying, hey, we want to be more like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or if it was just them in general saying, from the very get-go that they had this idea of what they wanted out of a theme park land. Probably a little bit of both, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it just happened to come around. This offer, this deal between this partnership came around at the perfect time when things were in the midst of changing. And I'm sure both sides were like, Nintendo wants you to be inside the video game more, and Universal wants to keep moving in this direction, hence the new theme park style like Epic Universe.
So I heard you mention earlier that there are some, ride technologies that were initially pitched that have still made it. Namely, I'm assuming that most of those are probably within Mario Kart. So what exactly can you talk about from what you've heard at this point that's going into the Mario Kart attraction?
Well, actually, one of the technologies that we saw in the pitch that made it through is the Donkey Kong coaster.
Wow.
The Boom Coaster was invented like all those years back for the pitch, but back then the coaster was more outdoors, kind of almost like Woody Woodpecker's Nut House coaster, small scale, but like with jumping the track. And through an evolution of ideas, it's become more immersive, and half of it's inside now, and it has show scenes and animatronics. So it's the same technology for the coaster itself, but it's been placed into a more immersive environment.
If that technology was compact and a coaster that small, I feel like that would just be absolutely madness. Having jump tracks and something that small just seems crazy.
It would be a little bit more spread out, but I mean, as far as it's an outdoor, it's about as themed as Woody Woodpecker is. But yeah, for the Mario Kart, a lot of the technology stayed the same, but the way that they were designing the original version, you could tell Universal was like, let's go for the classic look, the classic style. They used maybe only 4 of the settings within the Mario Kart series, and most of them are like some of the original ideas. You'll see in the concept art, there's like a Mushroom Kingdom setting. It's very old school. Here's the question mark bricks. Here's some Goombas, like really like Super Mario Brothers 1 old school. And there's Bowser's Castle. And it ends in Rainbow Road, but it's more like an old school Super Nintendo version, first Mario Kart version of Rainbow Road. And Peach's Castle inside the show building, inside the Mario Kart ride. And that's like it. It's like that's the entire ride. And it was like a 2-story ride where it intertwined with itself, but it wasn't a great use of space. I think it ended up being kind of almost like one circuit where you start in Bowser's Castle, you go through Peach's Castle, you go through Mushroom Kingdom, and you end in the Rainbow Road. It would have been a fine ride, but you can tell Nintendo wanted to update the idea and the concept to match their newer video games, because it went from these like 4 tracks to 10 different tracks in one ride. The building got reshuffled a bit. The 2 stacked layer design went to a single layer with a 2-track format side by side. It used to be, it would just be 1 track, and you go through the ride with animatronic characters that you come up beside you every once in a while. But now in the current design, you're racing against another car the whole time. And I think that makes it more like it makes it feel more like a race other than just going through a dark ride. And I like that. But I also like all the new settings.
Is that car filled with other guests?
Yeah, you in one car with 4 people in one car, and then there's a whole nother track right next to you, like Radiator Springs Racers or Men in Black Alien Attack. 2 cars racing up against each other the entire time, and on the lower level of this massive building. The building is like bigger than ET Adventure, but ET Adventure shares the building with the pre-show and all the interior forest queue. The whole lower level is just the ride, and the upper level is the pre-shows and the queue and the gift shop and the bathrooms. So it's a great use of space, but also because of that, they were able to put more into it, more tracks and newer tracks. And I'm sure that's a Nintendo thing. You get the feeling that Nintendo is like, this looks great, but can we update it from Super Nintendo to, at least Mario Kart 8? Like, we've got some new ideas, and Twisted Mansion, Dolphin Shoals, the updated spacier version of Rainbow Road, things like that.
For people that don't know, I guess speak to kind of what you briefly touched on. This isn't going to be just 1, 2, or 3 levels from the game. There's literally going to be at least 7 or 8 stages that we're literally going to just transfer and I guess kind of jump from stage to stage. Like how is that process going to be? How is that going to be seamless?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Forbidden Journey in that like that ride does a great job of just throwing everything you know about Harry Potter into one ride. And It's like, and now we're in the Chamber of Secrets, and now we're at the Quidditch pitch, and now we're at here. It's a lot like that, where you start in the dungeon of Bowser's Castle, which is like the facade for the attraction. And there's like the lava and Bowser's giant head engraved on the castle walls. And then you go from the start line into another scene, and like you leave the castle walls and go into like almost like a highway. And then do you want to go through all the scenes? Like it's incredible the way they transition them between scene to scene. So it's going to be kind of mind-blowing, and you're gonna have to ride it multiple times to really see like, how did we get from the underwater to into the air? Like
wait, did you just say we're going underwater?
Of course we're going underwater.
Okay, time out. Guys, you aren't going to be happy with me, but unfortunately, that is where we have to end today's episode of Shark Stop. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Theme Park Shark podcast. If you want to find Alicia Stella, she is the Theme Park Stop by Alicia Stella on YouTube. She has the Park Stop podcast, and she is Alicia Stella on Twitter. Here at the Theme Park Shark, we are exactly that on Twitter. We are also at themeparkshark.com. And of course, as you most likely already know, we are the Theme Park Shark on YouTube. Don't forget to tune in next week where we will be diving into these rumored levels that will be appearing on the upcoming Mario Kart attraction. That'll be an episode that you guys won't want to miss, so make sure to come back right here next week for next week's segment of Shark Stop. We'll see you guys then. Take care.